Have you ever noticed how your legs sometimes feel weaker than they used to? Or how getting up from a chair suddenly takes a little more effort? Maybe you've brushed it off, thinking it's just part of getting older. But what if I told you that this isn't just about aging or doing less? Many seniors experience muscle weakness not simply because they're inactive, but because of little-known changes happening inside the body. Changes we rarely talk about. It's one of those small issues that quietly sneak up on us, yet it can affect our independence, confidence, and even safety. I know it's something many of us worry about silently, and it's easy to feel like you're facing it alone. In this video, I want to share what science has uncovered about why our muscles weaken with age, and more importantly, simple habits you can start today to keep your strength and mobility alive. By the end, you'll discover one surprisingly easy routine that can make a real difference in how you feel each day. So, let's walk through this together, because aging doesn't have to mean giving up on feeling strong and capable. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now let's begin. Sometimes, as the sun sets and another day slips quietly into the past, you might find yourself sitting alone, staring out the window and wondering where all the years have gone. The days seem to blend. Morning coffee, errands, doctor's appointments, and a few chores around the house. And suddenly, you realize you're not just another year older. You're 65, maybe 70. Time hasn't just flown by. It's swept you up in its current, and you're left wondering how life could feel so busy and yet so empty at the very same time. I know I'm not alone in this feeling. For decades, life was a rush. Getting up early, fighting traffic, putting in long hours, worrying about bills, raising kids, and checking boxes on endless to-do lists. Every day seemed urgent, full of responsibilities that felt bigger than myself. There were baseball games and PTA meetings, late nights at the office, grocery shopping after work, the whole cycle repeating like a clock that never winds down. Back then, I told myself I was doing all of it for my family, for the people I loved. I assumed, as so many of us do, that there would always be time for connection, laughter, for simple moments around the table with the people who matter most. But somewhere along the line, those opportunities started slipping through the cracks. A missed phone call here, a rain check on dinner there. We'll get together soon. Until suddenly, soon never comes. Retirement arrives. I dreamed about this. I imagined sleeping in, traveling, and taking up new hobbies. I thought finally I'd get to rest after all that hard work. But no one ever warned me about the quiet, the thick, almost suffocating quiet that comes with too much time and not enough people to share it with. The house feels bigger, the days longer, and the old routines start to lose their meaning. You open the refrigerator and realize you're buying food for one. You turn on the TV for the company of voices you'll never meet. It's a silence that doesn't refresh. It's a silence that echoes. At first, I didn't even notice. I thought I was just settling in, learning to relax. But after a few months, I realized the stillness wasn't soothing. It was isolating. The peace I longed for felt a lot more like loneliness. I remember one evening in particular. The leaves outside were turning gold and red. It was Thanksgiving, a holiday I used to love, full of laughter, family, and the comforting chaos of too many people crammed into too small a kitchen. But this year, it was just me. I made myself a small plate, sat at the table, and tried to be grateful. But the chair across from me was empty. My phone stayed silent. I felt the weight of every year, every missed opportunity, and every unreturned call. It hit me then. I had built a life filled with activity, but somewhere along the way I forgot to build connections that would last beyond my working years. I realized how easy it is to fill a calendar, but leave your heart empty. So, here's the question that keeps me up at night. The question I wish I'd asked myself decades earlier. How did I end up with so much time, but no one to share it with? It's a question that stings because the answer isn't simple. It's easy to say I was too busy or that life just got in the way. But the truth is, I chose to prioritize work, chores, and obligations over my relationships. I believed I could always reconnect with old friends later, always find time for family next weekend, and always make up for lost moments after retirement. But relationships are living things. They need care, attention, and time, just like anything else worth keeping. For years, I thought I was being responsible. I thought that by focusing on providing, being reliable, on getting things done, I was showing my love. But there's a difference between being present physically and being present emotionally. I was there for the recital and the birthdays, but I wasn't always truly there, not with my heart. And when the job ended, the kids grew up, and the routine changed, I was left with empty hours and a nagging sense of regret. If you're listening to this and it feels familiar, you're not alone. Many people our age have gone through the same thing. Recent research shows that loneliness is becoming one of the most serious health risks for older adults in America. According to studies from Harvard and the National Institute on Aging, seniors who feel isolated have a significantly higher risk of heart disease, depression, and even early death. And yet, loneliness doesn't always look like sadness. It can just feel like numbness, a dull ache, or a longing for connection that you can't quite put into words. It's tempting to brush it off, to believe it's just part of getting older. Everybody loses friends, I used to tell myself. Families drift apart. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be that way. That assumption that loneliness is inevitable as we age is simply not true. Yes, life changes, and yes, people move on. But the capacity for connection never disappears, no matter how many birthdays you've had. The first step to changing is challenging that old assumption. So let me share with you the science, because sometimes facts help us see our feelings more clearly. Research from the University of Michigan found that social relationships are as important to health as diet and exercise, sometimes even more so. Studies show that people with strong social ties tend to recover faster from illness, experience less chronic pain, and even have sharper memories. One long-term Harvard study followed hundreds of people from youth into old age, and their findings were simple but profound. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. It's not about the number of friends you have or whether you're married or single. It's about the quality and depth of the connections you maintain. Unfortunately, American culture often teaches us to value independence, productivity, and self-sufficiency above all else. We take pride in doing it ourselves. While that can be empowering, it also makes it easy to hide loneliness or feel ashamed to reach out. When life gets busy or difficult, we withdraw. When we lose touch with a friend or have a disagreement with family, we convince ourselves it's easier to stay silent than to risk rejection or discomfort. Bit by bit, those small choices add up until one day you realize you're living in a world that feels quieter than you'd ever expected. The regret I feel most deeply after 65 isn't about money, missed vacations, or career opportunities. It's this. I regret not nurturing my relationships, the friendships I let fade because I was too busy, the family I didn't call because I figured they'd call me, the neighbor I waved at but never invited over for coffee, the daughter I texted but rarely visited, thinking a message was enough. There are moments I remember waking up with a fever and realizing I had no one to ask for help, feeling low and not knowing who to talk to, looking at my phone on my birthday, waiting for a message that never came. These moments aren't just sad, they're a wake-up call. They're a reminder that human beings are built for connection. And no matter how much we accomplish, it's the people in our lives who give our days meaning. So what do you do when you find yourself in this position? So much time, but no one to share it with. For a long time, I didn't know where to start. It felt overwhelming, almost embarrassing to admit I was lonely. But change starts with a single step. And sometimes it's as simple as reaching out, even when you're not sure how it'll be received. Here's what I've learned, both from personal experience and from the stories of others. First, forgiveness of yourself and others is essential. It's easy to beat yourself up for lost time or to resent people who haven't kept in touch. But carrying that bitterness only makes the loneliness deeper. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it means letting go of what's holding you back from connecting. Now, second, vulnerability is not weakness. For years, I thought being strong meant never admitting I needed people. But real strength is having the courage to say, I miss you, or I'd love to catch up, or even just, I could use a friend. There's power in being open. Science shows that authentic, vulnerable conversations create deeper bonds and release chemicals in the brain that make us feel good, like oxytocin. Third, take practical steps to reconnect. Don't wait for someone else to make the first move. Call a friend, even if it's been years. Write a letter, even if you're nervous about what to say. Invite a neighbor for a cup of tea, or join a local class or group, even if you feel out of place at first. The small efforts matter, and often you'll find others are just as eager to connect as you are. Let me share the story of someone I met last year at our local senior center. Her name is Mary. She was 78, sharp as a tack, with a laugh that could fill a room. But when I first met her, she was withdrawn, sitting quietly by herself every afternoon. One day, I sat beside her and asked about her favorite memory from childhood. She brightened, and we talked for nearly an hour. Over the next weeks, I learned that Mary had spent years caring for her husband, and after he passed, she felt completely adrift. Her children lived in other states, and her friends had moved or passed away. I didn't realize how lonely I'd become until I stopped having anyone to take care of, she told me. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment one below to let me know that you are still here with me. But Mary decided, after months of silence, to start showing up. She signed up for a book club, joined a gentle exercise class and started volunteering at the local food pantry. Bit by bit, her circle grew. She started calling her sister every Sunday, writing letters to her grandchildren, and inviting new friends over for coffee. It wasn't easy at first, she admitted. I felt like a stranger in my own life. But every time I reached out, it got a little less scary and a little more rewarding. Now Mary is a regular at our center. She brings cookies, shares stories, and checks in on others who are new or sitting alone. Her life isn't perfect, and she still misses her husband every day. But she told me, I regret the years I let myself drift away from people, but I'm proud of myself for starting again, even if it was late. If there's anything I've learned from my regrets, from the research, and stories like Mary's, it's that connection doesn't end with age. It only ends when we stop reaching for it. You don't have to accept loneliness as a fact of aging. You can nurture your relationships. No matter how much time has passed, you can build new ones too. So here's my gentle advice. If you find yourself where I was, forgive yourself for lost time. Take a risk and reach out, even if your voice shakes. Be the one to invite someone in rather than waiting for an invitation. Show up even when you're unsure. And most importantly, remember that you are worthy of love, friendship, and connection today and every day forward. It's never too late to build the life you want, and it's never too late to let people in. As I sit here a few years past 65, I still feel pangs of regret for the relationships I let slip away. But each day is a new chance to connect, to share, to make someone, yourself included, feel less alone. If you're reading this, know that your story isn't finished, and your presence matters. Maybe today you can call a friend you've lost touch with, send a note to a family member, or join a community group that interests you. You never know how one small step can change the course of your life. In the end, what I regret most isn't what I didn't do for work, money, or recognition. What I regret is every moment I could have spent in laughter, in conversation, in true companionship, but chose to be busy instead. I can't go back, but I can move forward. So can you. So tonight, before you turn out the light, ask yourself, who do I want to share my time with? And what small step can I take tomorrow to nurture that connection? Let's not waste another day of silence or loneliness. Let's reach out, because we all deserve to feel seen, heard, and loved at any age. You have more power than you think to shape your days and the story of your life. And even now, even after 65, the best chapters might still be waiting to be written. For a long time, I drifted through my days on autopilot. Retirement was supposed to be a new beginning, a reward for all the years of effort. Instead, I found myself caught in a routine that felt oddly hollow, as if I were a ghost haunting my own house. But the moment that finally woke me up wasn't dramatic or loud. It was the quietest moment I've ever known. It was 3 a.m. I remember lying in bed, eyes wide open, heart thumping in my chest for no obvious reason. The world outside was utterly still. Even the clock seemed to tick more slowly, as if it too had paused to listen to my thoughts. In the darkness, a question floated up. If I didn't wake up tomorrow, would anyone know? It was a question I'd never dared to ask myself before, and it stopped me cold. I lay there, replaying the years in my mind, birthday parties and graduations, work deadlines and anniversaries, the noise and bustle of a life lived on fast forward. I'd always been surrounded by people, but now, in the quiet, I realized how few of those connections had survived the years. My phone was full of contacts, but how many would notice my absence? The truth felt heavy and a little bit frightening. I knew in that silent hour that something had to change. Not tomorrow, not next month, right now. The years behind me were longer than those ahead, and I didn't want to spend them as a spectator in my own life. I wanted to feel alive again, to rediscover the spark I'd lost along the way. But where does one begin when it feels like so much time has slipped away? I started small, partly out of fear, and partly because the grand gestures didn't seem possible anymore. But sometimes it's the smallest actions that set the biggest changes in motion. The first step was picking up the phone, not to scroll aimlessly, but to dial a number I hadn't called in years. It belonged to my old friend, Jack. We grew up together, went fishing in the summers, laughed over silly pranks in high school, and then, as so often happens, life got busy. Careers, marriages, children. Our conversations faded to Christmas cards and the occasional forwarded joke. For years, I had thought about calling, but something always held me back. Would he remember me? Would he care? That morning, after my sleepless night, I told myself that it didn't matter. The risk of reaching out was nothing compared to the risk of letting another year go by in silence. My hand shook as I dialed his number. To my surprise, Jack answered on the second ring. "Hello?" His voice was a little rougher, maybe a bit older, but unmistakably Jack. There was a pause when I introduced myself, and then laughter. Real, joyful, familiar. "Where the heck have you been?" he asked. We talked for an hour, catching up on lost years and remembering old times. When we finally said goodbye, I hung up, feeling lighter than I had in years. That single call became my new routine. Every week I made it a point to call Jack or another friend from the past. Sometimes we talked for hours, sometimes only a few minutes. Sometimes people didn't pick up or the conversation felt awkward at first. But I kept trying, and over time, those calls became a lifeline, a reminder that no matter how far you drift, it's never too late to return. Next, I looked for connections in my community. I'd heard about a gentle yoga class at the senior center, and after some hesitation, I decided to try it. I'd never been the athletic type, and the idea of stretching in front of strangers made me nervous, but I went anyway, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, feeling conspicuous among a room full of unfamiliar faces. The instructor was warm and welcoming. She told us to focus on our breath, to listen to our bodies, and to let go of judgment. At first, my body protested every movement. My joints creaked, and I worried that I looked foolish. But as the weeks went by, I started to notice small changes. The stiffness in my back faded. My balance improved, but the biggest surprise wasn't physical at all. It was emotional. I started to recognize the faces around me. We'd chat before class, share stories about our grandkids, and laugh about our struggles to touch our toes. One day, a woman named Linda asked if I wanted to get coffee after class. We sat in a little cafe sharing memories and dreams, and I realized how much I'd missed a simple, spontaneous connection. Yoga became more than just a class. It was an anchor, a reason to leave the house, to move my body, to connect with others. I started looking forward to it each week, not just for the stretches, but for the friendship and the sense of belonging. Another step was reaching out to family. My sister and I hadn't spoken in years, not out of anger, but simply because life had taken us in different directions. We'd always meant to catch up, but weeks turned into months, then years. I found myself thinking of her often, wondering how she was, whether she ever thought of me. One afternoon, I sat down at the kitchen table, pulled out a pen and some stationery, and wrote her a letter. It wasn't long or complicated. I simply told her I was thinking of her, that I missed our talks, and that I hoped she was well. I slipped it into an envelope and mailed it, half expecting nothing in return. A week later, I received a reply. It was written in her familiar looping script, full of stories about her children, her garden, and her struggles and joys. We started writing back and forth, then talking on the phone, then visiting in person. The years apart melted away. I wondered why we'd ever let them build up in the first place. Saying, "I love you" became another small, brave act. For years, I'd struggled to express my feelings, especially with my son. Maybe it was the way I was raised, or the belief that love was best shown through action rather than words. But after my sleepless night, I realized how much I wanted him to know, truly know, how much he meant to me.